All right. Welcome back to Chalk Talk with Chuck and Jalen. It is the divisional round. Jalen, how are you?
Um, been better, but
Yeah.
hopefully some good football today can just uh, you know, take take me out of my pain from last week.
Oh, I know. I've never been so disappointed and maybe so wrong about something than I was last week about the games being fun matchups and the Vikings in general. I was so excited for last week's games. I thought we had a bunch of teams that seemed evenly matched, a bunch of teams that deserved to be there, but I was thinking about why the results ended up being what they were. And then it kind of clicked for me yesterday. There are teams in the NFL who play their very best football every week just to make the playoffs. And there are teams in the NFL that can make the playoffs without playing their best football. And when those teams meet, like they do in the wild card round, like the Steelers and the Ravens, like the Texans and the Chargers, like the Bills and Denver, like Philly and Green Bay, the gap is so much larger than it would seem. And I know it's such a basic point in the NBA. It's very obvious. There are teams that just kick it into an extra gear for the playoffs and they end up sweeping teams. In the NFL, it's a little harder to identify because I think they do play way harder than their floor during the regular season. But they're just teams that have that extra level. And that was the Ravens, that was the Bills, that was the Texans even had an extra level defensively I didn't know they had in them. The Eagles clearly have another level, and they probably still have a level to go. And the Rams at another level. And all those teams who lost didn't have that extra thing. So that's what the only thing that can explain. These teams that make the playoffs that have to put 100% effort in always fall on their face in the first two rounds.
Yeah, that's actually a great point because it did feel like all season, like even though the Vikings were good, it felt like it was 100% effort like the entire season, which there's nothing wrong with that. But then like you watch a Chiefs game, a Bills game, a Ravens game, like I don't know. There's just a different level to those teams where like I mean we just talked about it before we started recording today, but we were like talking about how are the Chiefs gonna start trying today? Like finally after
Right.
16 games, and they just went 15-1.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's that exact thing, right? The Chiefs, you when you watch them, you can tell that it's not everything they've got. You know that there's another level. When you watch the Ravens, you know that there's another level. The Bills, it's the same thing. I even didn't feel like the Bills or the Ravens had to tap too far into the next thing that they were planning on doing. But you could tell that, like the Ravens said, okay, Lamar, if they're not spying you and your first two options aren't there, go. We're in the playoffs. We're not preserving you for anything. This is what you were preserved to do. Now you can run. That extra element really messes with teams. And Detroit's a little bit different because I think they're giving effort because of their coach all the time, but you still have this
Yeah.
feeling that they have so many things they can do that new
Right.
iteration of whatever they're going to do against you is going to kill you.
Yeah. Another this comparison just came to me, but like Lamar playing, I think it was in the Texans game where he had like that big run, and after the game, he's like, I was just out there jogging. And then,
Yeah.
flip side, you go to Minnesota and they got Sam Darnold on their shoulders like he's Rudy in week 14. And Lamar's like, yeah, I'm just out here jogging, man.
Right. Yeah, that's the Darnold thing. So I was really high on the Vikings. I ended up watching them more than I've ever watched them because of the pod, because I do it with you, and uh, I fell in love with the Darnold story. I fell in love with the season's arc and got blinded by something. And I was actually having drinks with my brother at his apartment last night, and he's got this friend who's also a Vikings fan. And I was talking to him the week before about, the chart that I had made and how I really liked your guys' odds based on your wins. And he said, yeah, well, the one thing your little chart didn't account for was a curse. And I was like, Dude, it's totally fair. My little chart did not have the curse in it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a I could sum it up by saying like an unexpected season comes to a predictable ending, basically.
Yeah, that's really poetic, but it's true.
Like I don't know, dude. It's like every Viking season there's like, oh, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and then like you get to the first round and it just ends up being like a clown laughing at you. Like I don't know. It's stupid, bro. It's
It's
it's so hard to be a
unfortunate.
fan of this of this team every year, but I don't know. I mean, I was completely off the Vikings last week because I've
Yeah.
been through this so many times. But you know, I mean, you probably won't get fooled again.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you because the Steelers. I had jumped off the Steelers train pretty hard. I thought they'd at least cover against their division rival, but in very similar spots where it's like about 2.5 weeks ago, I knew we were going to lose in the first round, and then we lose the last week to the Bengals. We could have played Houston, who maybe thank God we didn't. They looked pretty good last weekend, but would have rather played them. Noah, we have to play the Ravens, and you just knew. I mean, it's spelled first round exit all over the wall, and I don't know if we played any of those teams in the first round if we would have survived. I think maybe we would have beaten Denver,
Yeah,
but I also read a headline today. I mean, it's been dark in Steelerland.
for sure.
We've got Rogers talk. We've got Shadur Sanders talk. I mean, there are two people that I have spent the good part of the past 2 to 3 years shitting on, and one of those people is Shadur Sanders, and the other is Aaron Rodgers. And if one of those guys ends up being my quarterback, I don't know what I'm going to do.
I don't know. I think it's just getting clicks. I think because there's only one
For
route for
sure.
Shador, and it's like trading PJ Watt or something like, and there's no way
Yeah,
that'll ever happen. And I don't think
I'd
they're
rather
dumb
have the
enough to
kid from
sign
Utah.
Rodgers. Yeah,
Right. I'd rather have Jackson Dart
yeah. I mean,
than
drafting a
Shadur.
quarterback is a shot in the dark, anyways. But
Yeah, you're rolling the dice, but I don't know.
yeah, look at us, man. Just a couple of losers.
Dude, and like the worst kind of losers. Like
Yeah,
I would just rather my team be flat ass than give me this hope. Make it
yeah.
this
Like
far only to get like pissed on.
there's no point of going 14-3 because we're not even gonna have the same quarterback next year. It's just a waste of my time, dude.
Dude, it's the worst.
But yeah, I'm excited for JJ McCarthy. So
Hey, I told you that the one thing about JJ McCarthy that I think is really exciting is it's KOC's first chance at having a guy that is his guy. You know,
yeah,
he
and he has
drafted
like
him.
he's really good for like social media stuff because he looks like Anakin Skywalker. So I've seen
Oh
a lot of
yeah,
like cool edits. So that should
great
be fun.
aura,
Yeah,
great
yeah,
aura.
yeah. I don't know how he's gonna be do his like grounding thing playing indoors, but you know how he like takes off his shoes before every game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, his meditation.
big meditation guy. But if he can
He's
meditate me into the NFC Championship or Super Bowl, then I'm on board.
you're not going to complain. No, he's a winner. That's the one thing that's you can't take away from him. And
For sure.
I was thinking about this today. Are we going to go back and look back at this past quarterback draft and go, it's like one of the best of all time?
There's a chance it's trending that way. Like all these guys are pretty good. Jaden Daniels already won a playoff game. Bo Nix in the
Yep.
playoffs. I think Caleb will
Yep.
have a pretty good year next year. Um,
He didn't even have that
I-
bad of a year this year.
no, he did it. Like with the with the circumstances he was under and what was in Chicago this year, like he honestly did a pretty good job for what he had there. But
Yeah. And then, Drake May could pan out. The Michael Penix thing looked a lot better than Kirk Cousins at the end of the year.
yeah, Joe
And
Milton too.
dude, Joe Milton he's electric. That was awesome. And
You
part
guys
of
should
me was
trade
like,
for him.
Steelers just that's exactly what I was about to say. Like, why wouldn't we trade a fifth round pick for Joe Milton?
Yeah.
Yeah, send them George Pickens for their second round pick and Joe Milton. I'm all in. But yeah, no, it sucks, but that the Steelers and the Vikings are in the spot, but at least you've got one of the quarterbacks from maybe like the quarterback draft. We don't have anything. I've heard everything under the sun about what we're going to do at quarterback.
Yeah, dude, do we have updates on what you guys are going to do in the draft? I know your wide receiver from LSU is was just caught in like a hit and run, so I don't know if
Oh, are you
I don't know
serious?
if it's going to work. Yeah, I mean, how could you ever guess that guy would be involved in any crime
He's
after he's shooting the machine gun on quarterbacks' heads during games?
I mean, look, I want the kid from really who I want is the kid from Missouri, like a big bodied receiver. That'd be great. But I know what we're gonna do. We're gonna take like a DB in the first round. We'll probably take the DB from Texas, but I want a receiver at this point. I don't know what the point of fielding a team whose best wide receiver is George Pickens, who's probably not going to be on the team next year, and the next best guy is a 5'6", like third down running back almost build type of person. So I just am, the Steelers' offense needs so much help. I saw an interview with Devontae Adams where he said he wants to play for Mike Tomlin. Please.
Oh, so you could get Rogers and Adams.
And yeah, which they haven't played together in a long time. Could be a good idea, right? Last time they
Yeah.
were this year didn't exist in New York for that duo. All I'm going to tell you is if for some reason the Steelers end up with Rodgers and Adams, I will pretend that the past 2 years at the Jets never happened.
I mean, honestly, you might have a better chance with those guys than what you went into the playoffs with this year. So never know.
Never know. I would have rather had Rodgers than Wilson this last stretch of 6 games. So,
Oh yeah, I would have taken Aaron Rodgers too.
which is so sad. It's just a bad spot. We're in a bad spot. I don't think Arthur Smith is going anywhere, but we are going to get rid of Terrell Austin, it seems like. I don't know who you bring in at D coordinator. I know that they interviewed there's rumors that we're going to bring in Salah, which would be awesome.
Ooh, that would be cool. He's a good coach.
He's a great coach. And it'd be nice to see Tomlin kind of relinquish some of that defensive duty, let somebody else handle that. Um, Again, we
Yeah.
fumbled the biggest bag ever. We had Brian Flores, and we just didn't promote him.
Yeah,
So
well,
so
he got shredded this week. So
he did.
last week.
Yeah, and you know, I know that we were both really upset with that, but man, Sean McVay and Stafford is such a special like combination, and I'm so happy we got it. I know that you're obviously not right now, but as football fans,
No,
it's great to see those two guys collab.
look, I'm a big Rams fan. Stafford's one of my favorite QBs to ever play the game.
Right,
So like, if I was gonna lose to anyone, you know, it didn't feel that
Matt
bad because
Stafford.
I really like that Rams team too. I mean, we've liked them all year.
Yeah,
They're fun to watch, and yeah, I mean, I think they got a good chance this weekend too.
I do too. I mean, the light clicked for me with them really, which is sad, is that Thursday game that we watched at your house against your team. When
Yeah,
they went out there, I was like, oh, things could work here, and they
yeah.
ended up working out down the stretch. Um, all right, that's a little bit of the recap from last week. Sure, throughout the next couple of weeks, you'll hear me get more and more depressed about the Steelers. But for now, we will turn. I do have a basement tape story. This is a great one coming from my dad. So it builds on the commercial saga. We were watching that commercial where the kids are playing DMX on like kazoos in the backyard. And my dad was like, "Hey, you know what? I really like that commercial. It's funny, it's sweet, but it's not overbearing." And I was like, "Dad, it blows my mind that they have kids playing DMX songs on kazoos in commercials now." "What do you mean?" So I played him "Where the Hood At," and he was like, "Oh, well, that's not the song they're playing in that, is it?" I was like, "Oh no, it's not. But here's that song." And that song, like fourth lyric in, is like getting head. And
Yeah.
my dad was like, "I can't fucking believe that." I was like, "Dad, I'm telling you, it's really bizarre that DMX is on a commercial with kids playing kazoos. Like he's super homophobic and he talks about getting his dick sucked all the time." And he
Oh
goes, "Oh
yeah.
my, that is vulgar." And it comes on later that night because my brother's been coming up for Sunday dinners, and he's like, "Is that a DMX songs with kids in it?" It's like, yes, dude. And my dad was like, that song's wildly inappropriate."
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, it was it was a trip. It was a trip to get my dad going like that.
Yeah, that's good. The one commercial he likes, he just ends up doing a complete 180 on.
Yeah, well, it's. I think he's more now just in awe that he's like, "Aren't people screening for that?" I was like, I thought so too, dude. I don't know.
Oh
There's
man.
somebody who's laughing really hard that commercial has been the commercial of choice. You'll see it
Yeah,
today. I'm sure you will.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that's the commercials basement tape. I would like to add that my mom has reached new levels of excitement because she's from Ohio. She grew up an Ohio State fan, and they're in the NCAA finals. So um, I'm sure she's going to be going crazy watching those games. We were watching the Notre Dame game the other night when they were playing Penn State. I think I got asked who the best player on Penn State was like 15 times. My dad eventually got up. He's like, "Jesus Christ." Just walked away for a second. My mom asked me for like the fifth time who the Bengals should get from Notre Dame. I was like, "Well, their safety is like extremely good." And she keeps now she's been going around the house saying, "We need to get that guy from Notre Dame." So at least the message landed. Um, but yeah, so that's basement tapes. I guess we'll get into the picks now for the divisional round. We only have 4 games, which is so depressing, dude. Uh,
Yeah,
Granted, there'll be better games than we've gotten for the majority of the season, but it's really sad.
maybe.
Uh, maybe, yeah. I've kind of lost all hope for competitiveness at this point. I'm just hoping that the Super Bowl and conference championships are. Uh, the score, I think you're still up 3. We tied last week.
Um, yeah, we tied last week. You actually
Okay.
were winning by what? I think you had a 2-point lead, and then the Rams
Yeah.
Vikings brought me back. Rookie mistake by you, but
Yeah. No. The Vikings have cursed me in more ways than one this year.
yeah,
So
just stay away.
just stay away. I don't have to think about them anymore. But I think we've got some conflicting points of view going forward. So hopefully I can make up some ground here in the next couple of days or next couple of weeks, because otherwise I'm going to be caddying for you, uh, which sucks ass. Houston versus Kansas City is the first game. We're doing today's pod like an hour before this game kicks off, which is kind of fun because the line moves around a little bit and you get to kind of follow that. But Houston's going to Kansas City, coming off of a pretty big win. This line opened originally at 7.5, and it's moved all the way to Kansas City by 8.5. Some places it's at 9. I think what Houston did last week was awesome. I didn't expect their defense to be that good, but it was. There's just too much about this Kansas City team that's too good for me to realistically think that Houston can beat them. A cover is another thing, but I'm curious what you think.
I I hate seeing an 8.5
Yeah.
on a line. Like I don't know what to do with it. But yeah, I mean I'm with you on the like I don't think there's any way that they win this game. I mean competitive and like you said cover is a different story, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think the defense is going to look as good as it did last week because you're not going to get the turnovers that Herbert gave that defense from Mahomes
Right.
this
And
week.
and the thing about preparing to play the Chargers versus preparing to play the Chiefs is for the Chargers, what are you preparing for? You're preparing for J.K. Dobbins and maybe Lad McConkey. You got like two things to do. Against the
Yeah,
Chiefs, you're preparing for everything. You're preparing for Mahomes. You're preparing for Pacheco. You're preparing for whatever receiver that
Kelsey.
they're prepared to make good. Kelsey. It's just a bigger portfolio of things to prepare for, and that limits your ability to do the same thing over and over again with success. The one thing that I think is in Houston's favor, and it's the only reason that I could ever summon in my brain to think that Houston actually has a chance in this thing, is the fact that Patrick Mahomes hasn't played in like a month, and the Chiefs starters have not played together in an NFL game since the Steelers game on Christmas. That's a long time. Uh,
Yeah,
Russ versus Russ is a real thing. This is a big, long. This is the longest period of rest I've ever seen a group of starters go through in the NFL. I mean, almost 3 entire weeks since they've played together, or maybe longer. Because what people forget is that Christmas game was on like a Wednesday, so it's not like it was 2 weeks ago on a Sunday or 3 weeks ago on a Sunday. It was like 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday. So we're talking over 21 days since they've played with each other. That's the only reason I could think, but I don't think that it's like a great reason, to be completely honest. So
yeah. I don't
it's
buy the rest stuff with like people that have proven themselves. Like Stafford getting 2 weeks off. Like that, there was no.
right.
My brain was just wasn't even entertaining the idea that he could be rusty, and I'm not entertaining the idea that Patrick Mahomes is rusty at all. I actually think
Yeah.
the extra rest for Pacheco and Kelsey is really good because Pacheco had that
Huge.
super crazy injury this year where he like snapped his leg. I guess it wasn't super crazy, but he did break his leg. Um, and then Kelsey's just I don't know. Kelsey's like he's not super old at this point, but he definitely was not getting like the targets. You could tell they just had him in like he was just coasting all season. So I think they really were just saving these guys for the playoffs. And I mean they've played together for a long time. This Mahomes, Pacheco, Kelsey trio, like
Mm-hmm.
I mean I don't see them coming out rusty.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to take the Chiefs to cover, which is bold
Okay.
because they never cover. Um, but I don't. There's something about like 8.5. I just it's Butker zone is what it is.
Yeah. So I think I'm gonna take I'm definitely taking the Chiefs to win, but I'll take Houston to cover. Um just because I'm so tired of being on the wrong side of these Chief covers.
Yeah, that's fair.
It does feel like, I mean, this is the thing. Houston played a team that didn't have an extra gear last week. Houston has to dig really, really deep to be in this game with the Chiefs. I mean, they have to be a different team than we've seen all year, even a different team
Yeah.
than we saw last week.
Another thing about this line is like Andy Reid has no problem taking points, and I could see them being up 6 and they have the ball in the fourth,
Mhm.
and they'll just kick a field goal and go up 9 because it makes it a 2 possession game instead of like trying to do anything crazy and score. Like, I don't know. We'll see. I hope this game is at least like entertaining, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
What's the
It's the
weather
final
like in
boss.
Kansas City? It's 25 degrees
Uh,
today. It's cold. That's what it is. It's
yeah.
cold, sunny. I mean, it's partly cloudy, but by the time that this game's ending, the sun will be down, and Houston's an indoor team. That's something that you can't forget. It's something to consider. And Arrowhead is just crazy. It's one of the best environments in football.
Yeah, looks like it's really windy too. So we'll
Hmm.
see how Fairbairn does in the wind. I don't think it wasn't great for him on that Christmas game. Oh,
No, it wasn't, was it?
now
He's
you missed the extra
Fairbairn
point.
for how good he was early has been so bad late.
Yeah,
Well, I've actually, you might have just convinced me. I think I'll take the Chiefs to cover. I'm gonna flip that.
it's boring, but you'd
It's the
rather
right
be.
pick.
I'd rather walk away with this and be like, oh, the Chiefs covered than like, why did I pick the Texans?
Right, right. Well, the next game is tonight's game. Commanders Lions. Commanders have been an awesome story all year. As a guy who lived in DC when I was there, they were just so pathetic for so long, and it's awesome to see how good they can be. It's awesome to see the city be that good. Um, and happy. It is a football town. I hated the Dan Snyder era. I lived the Dan Snyder era for 6 years. On the other side, you've got the Lions who just are smacking teams back into reality constantly. They've done nothing but punish teams who think that they're better than they are all year. And the defense seems to be coming around, but the Commanders have maybe the best quarterback in what is a really good quarterback draft and a guy who changes how you think about these types of games. If you're the Commanders, you're playing with house money. The Lions are 9.5 point favorites in Detroit. The ticket sales for this game we were discussing before are insane. For some reason, this game is going for $130 more than any of the other divisional games. And at one point, ticket sales were second to the Super Bowl. So really bizarre little note there. Don't know why that is, but it's the Lions minus 9.5. I'm going to take the Lions to win. I'm going to take the Commanders to cover because I want them to. But logic would tell me just take the Lions to cover here. Um, I just want Jaden Daniels to be that good, and I'd love to see it. And if you're the Commanders, you're going. This is the Lions are the team we want to be in 2 years. This is a great way to see if we're close to that. But that's my pick. I'm going to take Lions to win, Commanders to cover.
Yeah, I'm Lions all day
Yeah,
on this.
I thought so.
Uh, you brought up a great point about how the Lions have just punished teams all year and
Yeah.
really showed that hey, you're probably not as good as you think you are. And I think that's gonna happen here. It's no shot at the Commanders. I think it's been like an awesome season for them. But I don't think last week's win was that impressive. I thought Tampa made a lot of mistakes, and
Mm-hmm.
one thing about the Lions, they don't make mistakes. Outside of that one game where Jared Goff threw, what did he throw? 4 interceptions that game?
Or 5 picks or something. Yeah.
Yeah, then they came back in the second half and won. Like this team this team will never beat themselves, it feels like. And trying to play this game where you're scoring, like trying to outscore them, I mean, it's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of offense. I just don't think the Commanders are going to be able to keep up. One thing, I mean, if they go crazy on fourth downs, it could make the game interesting because they're actually
Mm-hmm.
a very good team on fourth down. Um, but so are the Lions. So I think it's just going to be a, a game filled with offense, which should be fun to watch.
Yeah, it should be. I think Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Olamide Zaccheaus, a couple of these guys have a chance to just kind of, if like you said, they can get the fourth down stuff going for them. If they're able to, get into the kitchen sink, empty it, and stick around and hang around, this game could be really entertaining. But they're going to have to do it by scoring because they have the 26th best, so one of the worst run defenses. And we all know what Detroit can do on the ground. David Montgomery's probably going to be back tonight. I don't know in what
Yeah.
capacity, but he will be back. That is a huge, note on this game is that Detroit probably can run the ball at will, and they're going to. So
Yeah, I don't even
crazy.
think it matters if Montgomery's back. Gibbs is so good, and he
He's
just
so
runs
good.
all over every team. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, their offensive line is ridiculously good, but yeah, I don't really see how the Commanders can stay in this game unless they're literally scoring every time on offense because I don't see a lot of defensive stops in this game for them. And I don't see turnovers from Detroit.
Yeah, that would be it, right? Marshawn Lattimore pick, Bobby Wagner forced fumble, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. I know that the Washington defense hasn't been great this year, but I think it's worth highlighting, and I think that I want to give the credit while we're here, and it's due to the coaching staff there because as bad as the defense have been, it's been a lot better than I think people thought it would be. I know we just
yeah,
highlighted how bad their run defense is, but this team was patched together, uh, defensively speaking, at the beginning of the year. Dan Quinn's done a fantastic job. If you would have told me there in the divisional round, I wouldn't have believed you. And they've got veterans out there. That's one thing. They've got Bobby Wagner and Marshawn Lattimore. These are two guys. Wags won a Super Bowl. Shout out Utah State. And Lattimore's been in huge games throughout his career. So they have guys that know what to do.
for
Would be
sure.
annoying.
And even on offense too. Like I think if the Robinson thing, which he's been kind of shaky this year, but they can
Right.
fall back on Eckler and
Yep.
Terry McLaurin's just really reliable. Like and Zach Ertz too. Zach Ertz has been great the second half of the season. Been an awesome target for Daniels, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean you never know. The Commanders have been surprising all year. I mean, I don't see them pulling this out, but
No.
there's been a little bit of magic for them this year, I'd say. And it seems like
Between them and
they
Houston,
get
who
the
has a better
bounces
chance?
too. Um,
They do get the bounces. Between them and Houston, who's got the better chance, do you think?
I think the Commanders do.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I don't know. The Chiefs are a whole different beast than the Lions, even still. Like, even with how awesome the Lions are, it's just, I don't know.
No, I mean the Chiefs are still the guys at the end of the video game. You know?
Yeah, and everyone treats them that way. Like, I think we talked about this in, like, what was it, the Bengals game in week 4 or 5? How, like,
Yes.
teams make the situation just like they do it to themselves, the coaches and the players. They make it way bigger than it needs to be. They don't just
Right.
like they teams need to simplify it and just play football. I know it's way easier said than done, but I don't know. You can't just be scared of this team when you play them. But yeah,
But they are. And consistently teams make this a bigger deal than it needs to be. So
and they get pressured into doing stuff that they wouldn't normally do, which is kind of why I like the Commanders more than the Texans because a lot of teams get pressured into like for
yeah.
going for it on fourth down against the Chiefs, but like the Commanders just go for it on fourth down. They've been doing it all year. They're great at it. So I don't know what Dan Campbell is gonna do to like throw this team off, but It's definitely an interesting matchup.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like you said, Detroit doesn't summon the respect to change the way that you play for them, like change those big decisions for them. Do we kick a
Yeah,
field goal? Do we go for it on fourth down? Do we do this? Do we do that? I mean, the amount of times I've watched games with the Chiefs and the broadcasters are like, if you want to beat the Chiefs, you probably got to go for it there on fourth down, not kick the field goal. And I'm thinking in my head the whole time, these guys are winning by 2 points every fucking game. Take the goddamn points. I
yeah.
mean, you know,
Just take them.
it,
Yeah,
I'd love to see the numbers on if teams had taken field goals early in the game, how many games the Chiefs would have lost based on their point differential. Uh, it's got to be at least two or three more games than they did this year. But that's part of
yeah,
it. I mean, that's part of being the king of the castle. You get those mental edges.
for sure.
Saturday games aren't as good as Sunday games. This this divisional round, we start off the Sunday games with the game that's line is shocking to me. I think it's a little shocking to you too. You've got the Rams going to Philadelphia. The Eagles are 6.5 point favorites at home. I think this line should be a little bit more narrow if that gives you any hint as to where I'll be going with my pick. But I do think the Eagles will ultimately win this game. They played earlier this year, but it's not early enough for you to kind of negate it like we might for the next game. It was about mid-season, mid to late season, and the Eagles did whatever they wanted against the Rams on offense. It was a 314-yard game on the ground, 400 total yards of offense. AJ
Insane.
Brown scored a touchdown. Just insane. And the Rams look pretty hopeless. I do think the Rams have put together some things in the weeks following that loss that would change my mind about how I think this game's going to go. But that is, ultimately that's hanging in the balance is thinking about that result. I want to look this up because I do think, if I remember correctly, there's a polar storm or a polar blast is what they're calling it, ripping through the East Coast. And yeah, this game's going to be 35 degrees snowing. The Rams are, of course, an LA based team that plays in a dome setting. So all those things come together. I still love Stafford to cover here. I will take the Eagles to win and the Rams to cover.
Yeah, I'm leaning more Eagles on this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because I mean we talked about it all year. We love the Eagles and the Ravens because when all else fails, they can just run the ball over and over and over and over. And I don't think the Rams defense is going to look nearly as good as it did last week because you can't pressure Jalen Hurts
Mm-hmm.
the same way that you pressured Darnold. And if Jalen Hurts doesn't see anyone, he's gonna run. He's not just gonna hold the ball and go down. And you're 9 sacks later. Sorry, PTSD kicking in. But yeah, I like the Eagles in this one. I love their defense this year, um, and I love that they could just lean on Saquon.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles and the Ravens are two very similar teams in that they can run the ball. And you want to know what matters right now more than ever when it's freezing cold and you're going against a team that has been there before, being able to run the ball and keep the most important part of that team off the field, and that is their offense. The keys for the Eagles to win this game is to play how they've been playing. Super boring, offense on the field all the time consuming drives that result in points, usually touchdowns. That kind of take the air out of the game, take the air out of the moment style of football could kill the Rams here because they need to be on the field offensively to win.
Yeah,
I just don't think that their defense can hang for that long. Now, they've done great things to move out of the Darnold era into this new era where they actually have, I think, a much more impressive defense than I ever anticipated them having. And the future is certainly bright. But when you're grinding it out in a snowy game in Philadelphia in the middle of January, it gets even harder and harder when the other guy is Saquon Barkley. So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
it's hard enough, right, when you got Hurts doing the tush push and everything, but then you've got Saquon freaking Barkley, who's been the best running back in the NFL, which is crazy to say because there's another guy who's played pretty well that we're going to talk about here in a second. Um, but Barkley is, I think, going to take the air out of this game, and I see the Eagles winning. But I like the Rams to cover. I do think that they have the opportunity. I think Kyron Williams is a good player. They have very good wide receivers. They have a really good quarterback. I think they have the better quarterback in the matchup. And so when you have the better quarterback in the matchup, I like you to at least hang in the game.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. I mean, I won't be shocked if the Rams cover. I don't know, man. This
Yeah.
Eagles, the matchups that teams have against this offensive line, it's never in their favor. It feels like.
No, it's crazy. The Eagles have managed to do what the Cowboys were incapable of doing for the majority of my life, which is have a good O line, but also take advantage of having that good O line. The Cowboys always had a good O line, but they never took advantage of it. They were never winning playoff games. They were never capable of kind of doing what the Eagles did, which is installing an offense that is centered around that, running the ball, large chunks of possession, killing teams' will to be out there. I mean, that's when I watch the Eagles, what I get the notion from the other team's defense is by the fourth quarter, they're like, oh my God, dude, are they going to convert again? Is this going to be
Yeah,
another 13 play drive? I know that the score is
you
20
you
to 10
can't
and
get
we're
them
still
off the
in this.
field.
But yeah,
Like,
you just can't get them off the field.
because if it's 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3, like they're handing it to Saquon or they're tush pushing 2 times, and
Right.
then it's just the clock is just. I mean, when they're doing the tush push stuff and running the ball, the clock is just ticking down and down and down. And by the time they score, it's like, oh, 10 minutes went off the clock.
It's unbelievable. And
Yeah,
and if they have the
I
ball late in the game, you just have a feeling they're going to be able to do that.
yep. But yeah, I'll take the Eagles to cover in this one and win.
Right on. And again, I want to another hats off to McVay. I know it sounds like we're burying their season. I could easily see the Rams doing something that we totally didn't expect and winning this game. Out of
For
all of the
sure.
games with these heavy underdogs, the Rams are by far the most likely team to win. I like
Yeah.
them way more than I like the Commanders. I like them way more than I like the Texans.
Yeah,
They
they
have
can beat
great
anybody.
pieces. They can beat anyone. That team is
And
good.
I will say I don't know if there's I mean outside of like Mahomes probably Stafford has to be in that category of like guys you never want to see with the ball like on a game winning drive. Like you don't want to be in that situation.
No, no. You want to be in a situation where you're in control. You don't want to be in, you know.
I
It,
mean if they can get this game going like back and forth and end up with a
yeah,
possession late in the fourth, like they could for sure pull it off. And I wouldn't be shocked at all.
no. If they're able to hang around, especially going into the fourth quarter, and you've got weird Ram stuff going on, you gotta like the fact that Cooper Cup. People are like, well, he looks like he's not been great. Yeah, he hasn't been great, dude, but he's still there. Nakua is not getting open like this because for no reason. It's because you've also got to worry about a guy who won the Triple Crown 3 or 4 years ago. He's not what he used to be.
Yeah.
No, but he's still there. And, you know, I also really like Kyron Williams. So the fact that they can run the ball with Kyron is a big deal. I don't know if they'll be able to get through that Eagles O line, D line though.
Yeah.
We move on.
Yeah, it'd be tough.
It'll be tough to the game that I don't know. This game's almost so hyped now that I'm nervous it's going to be horrible. But God, I
What?
pray that it meets the expectations that it should.
It's the game of the century, dude. Bill
It's
Simmons
the
said so.
Bill Simmons said so.
Game of the
They've talked about
decade,
it on
heck.
Pardon My Take all week. Uh, I know that the earlier game that these two teams played in was not very close, but I think that could change. You got Bills Ravens. It's the Ravens are favored in Buffalo by 1.5 points. This line opened with the Bills being favorites at 1 point, so it's been swinging all Buffalo all game. I mean, all week, or not all Buffalo. Sorry, it's been swinging away from Buffalo all week. It's Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. These are two guys that everybody's talking about. Can they get over the hump? They also were competing for the MVP all year long. You have Derrick Henry, and in Baltimore, Zay Flowers is going to be out versus James Cook, who's actually been pretty good, but he's nowhere near the level of Henry. And it's going to be freezing cold in Buffalo at night, 17 degrees, partly cloudy. Who do you like, Jalen?
I don't know. uh,
Oh,
I mean, who do I can give you who I want to win. I would rather see the Ravens win this, but
okay.
I don't know, dude. Like this game could go either way, and like I don't. I think you just almost throw everything out with the matchup earlier this year because I think the
The week
Bills.
4 matchup or whatever it was.
Yeah, the one that was what 4 months ago. It feels like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've seen a bunch of stuff about how the Bills defense was like really injured during that matchup. Um, it seems like they have all their guys back now. I I have a hard time going against either of these quarterbacks.
Right.
Uh, and I hope it's as awesome, like you were saying, like it's almost so hyped that you're like scared that it's going to be bad at this point.
Yeah, it's because here's the thing, you can see all of the scenarios. You can see the Ravens absolutely blowing these guys out, and you just go, well, yeah, Derrick Henry. And I think that would be the route that it would happen. Is just the run game was too overwhelming. You can see the Bills blowing out the Ravens and it being just a bad day for Lamar and a great day for Josh. And you can see this game being awesome and both of the guys going at it. But it's so hard for me to choose like it is for you because I love Josh Allen and I think he's a great player. But I respect what the Ravens have done this year and over the past couple of years and what Lamar Jackson's capable of. I know because I have to live and breathe it at least twice a year, this year 3 times.
Yeah.
So it's come down to just like who do I personally want to win is who I might take the pick for, or I might go against that. I don't know. Did you have you? I think you know what, dude. Here's the thing. I want the Bills to win, but I'm gonna take the Ravens to win and cover because I want the Bills to win, and I need to come out on some positive here. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, I think what I've been doing all week to try to see which way I'm gonna go is like who do I trust more between Lamar and Josh? And I honestly lean towards Josh. And I'm the king glazer of Lamar Jackson. He's probably my
You are.
favorite player outside of Justin Jefferson. Like I love watching Lamar Jackson. I haven't missed a Ravens game all year. I think he's so fun to watch. I haven't had this feeling like watching a player since like watching James Harden back in the day when he was dropping like 60-point triple doubles. Like this guy is just he's cinema every week. Um, yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm just gonna take the Ravens to win and Bills to cover because there's been a lot of 1 point games this year. I think the Ravens actually have won a couple by one, so
Yeah.
that's my best guess at this. I'm super excited though. I really hope it just lives up to all the hype and it's just back and forth. Josh is playing awesome. Lamar's playing awesome. Henry's playing awesome. I just, yeah, this has uh this has the recipe to be a classic game, like everyone's
It
talking
really
about.
does. I mean, everything's there. And I think part of the reason why this game is so hyped is because of the MVP thing. I mean, this is ESPN is the headline article when you click on either the Bills or Ravens is how Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen became the rivalry of our own creation. And it is. It really is a rivalry that was manufactured by fans arguing about an MVP and arguing about which one of these guys is the guy that can take down the guy that they're inevitably going to run into next round, which is Mahomes. I mean, these guys' careers have been defined by the fact that they're good, but not good enough to beat Mahomes in the next round, which is unfair because they don't play defense. But that's that's just how we write the narrative. And that's what's so exciting about this is it's kind of like who gets the right to go into the next round and get over the hump.
Yeah, a side note to this, I this is probably like I want the Ravens to win the most out of the rest of these teams, but the Bills are definitely second. Like who I want to win the Super Bowl is in this. Both teams are in this matchup.
Yeah, I want the Bills to win the Super Bowl. That's who I'm cheering for. And if not the Bills and the Commanders. And that's
Okay,
actually
man.
closer than I thought it would ever be.
Yeah, but
But I
come
want the
on.
Bills to win the Super Bowl.
Commanders aren't winning the Super Bowl, man.
No, I know. But I'd love it. I lived there, for Christ's
Sure.
sake. I'd love it. But I
Yeah,
lived in
sure.
Baltimore too, but I'm a Steeler fan. Uh, yeah, no, it's you got to. I got to be cheering for Josh. Got to be cheering for Josh. So
Yeah, I mean, I'll be happy either way. Obviously, I prefer Lamar. I prefer the Ravens in this, but I'll never be mad if Josh Allen is making a deep playoff run. He's near the top of my list of most fun players to watch too. So
for sure. No, and
just
you
cheer
know
for
what?
football in this one.
Gun to my head, I'd tell you that the Ravens have a better chance of beating the Chiefs than the Bills.
Why do you think that is, though?
It's the running thing for me. It's the Henry thing. And
Yeah,
I think Bill Simmons put it great today. He's like, or I was listening to his podcast today. He was talking about how, you know, Cook is good, but then there are just these two guys that exist in this alternate universe to the universe we exist in as like people with regular running backs. And that's the team with Saquon Barkley and the team with Derrick Henry. Like these two guys they don't exist in the regular world of running backs. Like James Cook is a high end good running back. He doesn't even piss in the same urinal as Derrick Henry.
no, I would say the only one that can even be in talks with those two is Jameer Gibbs. But outside of that,
Agreed.
I think they're in a different category.
Right. And when McCaffrey's healthy and playing, he obviously deserves that too.
Sure,
But
yeah,
we just had a full season without him, so it's easy to forget. But
yeah.
yeah, Gibbs is the only guy who's like scratching that surface a little bit, but he's still down in the well compared to these guys. I mean, we're talking about guys who are having 2,000-yard seasons. And
Yeah.
the one thing about the cold weather, you pointed out, you like the Bills because of the cold weather earlier this week. But man, I would hate to be a Bills linebacker with Derrick Henry coming downhill at me in 17-degree weather.
I
That
would
would
too, but
suck
I
ass.
could I think you could say the same thing about Josh. And with the
100%.
way the rules are and the quarterbacks are protected, and he's been an abuser of the rules in years past. Like the whole
Mm-hmm.
slide thing, like
The fake
I
slide
mean,
against the Steelers last year.
dude, yeah, guys don't go at quarterbacks the same way that they do running backs, and I think Josh could really like end up with a huge game on the ground, and really
For sure.
just kind of one man like put everybody on his back and just win the game, which it kind of feels like he's done that all year too.
All year.
He is so impressive, man. I don't know if you can put another QB on this Bills team and have the same result. I don't even know if Lamar could carry them to what they've done this year.
I'd agree. And it's one of those things. I was thinking about Herbert a lot this week because I've kind of been a notorious Herbert kind of hater online and stuff because I think he's kind of a Twitter quarterback. But look, there are guys. There's not a lot of them. There's three, maybe four of them in the league at once at a time. Right now, I think there's three. There's four, but really three because we haven't gotten to see the other guy with this chance. There are guys that play quarterback that are so good that it doesn't matter who their receivers are.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson's one of those guys. I know that we don't talk about him like he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys. He's never had a great receiver. Zay Flowers is his
No,
first Pro Bowl receiver on his team. And I don't really think Zay Flowers is like all that great. Josh
I
Allen
don't
proved
either.
this year that he's one of those guys. Khalil Shakir is his best receiver. I know Amari Cooper's out there, but
Well, and then
you look at his
it's
receiving core.
randomly like Mac Hollins, like for three
Right.
weeks straight. You're like, who is this guy?
Yeah, the guy who doesn't wear shoes, who does
Yeah,
like, home improvement videos. And then it's Mahomes, right?
yeah,
And I know that the Burrow fans are going to want a piece. It's just like, hey, guess what? You guys are also lucky enough to have just also drafted the best receiver, so just be happy. I think Burrow's good enough to make a guy good. Yes, okay,
I do
but
too. Yeah,
they're going to be lucky enough to maybe never have to experience, the random roster of guys exploding. They just get to have Jamar Chase with it. So like, just be happy with that. But yeah, there's like three guys in the league that can do what these guys do. And in the past, it was the Brady, Rogers, Manning. Oh, it doesn't really matter who's at receiver. Although Manning had the Harris to, he had Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne
Reggie
back to
Wayne.
back, which was like super lucky. So he kind of gets the Burrow treatment there. But yeah, you just have guys that are able to make receivers good. I remember in Ben's career, it was always like, well, he went from Hines Ward retired. We went to Mike Wallace. Mike Ward really went to Santonio Holmes. He was a case, got rid of him. Went to Mike Wallace. He was a head case, got rid of him. Went to Antonio Brown. But it was like Ben was able to make a lot of guys good. AB was his own thing, but Santonio Holmes, Mike Wallace didn't really go on to do great things elsewhere. I mean, so they're just guys who are capable of it, and these are two guys who can do it. Period. The end.
Yeah,
And I
I
don't think
think
Herbert's capable of it. I guess is
no.
a long way to say I shitting on Herbert.
I think Chris Long brought up like a great point. I don't know if you listened to that part of my take this week, but he said he basically said this is Manning versus Brady, but these players are just 10 times more exciting to watch.
100%. A great way to put it.
Yeah, I'm so pumped for this game, dude.
I
I
am
hope we
too.
just
I
get
really
close
hope it
games
moves up.
all weekend.
I do too. I hope. I mean, I hope game starting in 20 minutes is good. But
Yeah.
uh, that's a wrap on the divisional round. Jalen, it was a pleasure. Thank you
Yeah,
very
man.
much. Good luck to you and your picks, and good job. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you.